Um, all right.
What was the point? Just remind me of that particular illustration. Self-introduction. Let me ask. I should remember.
Well, I don't recall that, how I used this a muscle for what was a muscle. No. Okay. Anyway, that was the point that she doesn't want anyone greater than she is. Yeah. To be on below the middle of the page, Lamed line begins Atzmiyim. So the last couple of lines were a very brief, so to speak, reintroduction, review of the moshel of the nefesh and the koiches, and how the Tanag HaNefesh spreads forth and is present in all the koiches. And this meaning that Tanag HaNefesh is in all the koiches, it is important. An important point in there is not only that there is Tanag in all the koiches, but the nefesh is the one that's participating. It's the nefesh who's having oineg in all the koiches. Koiches do not have oineg of their own. The nefesh is misanig in all the koiches, and this is where we had this perplexing question: how can the nefesh be misanig in koiches? Shalei be'erich. How the nefesh relate to koiches? So we discussed this and we illustrated this on many different levels. And the explanation to this all is that there is a koyach hachochma that is able to make this phenomenal link between the nefesh and the koyches, such that from the perspective, through the function of the koiches, of the chokhmah, through the intermediacy of chokhmah, it is possible to see a nefesh value in the koich. That is because chokhmah is a koyach kloli, which encompasses all aspects of the nefesh. And thus, chokhmah provides a platform for the world of functioning koiches, so that the functioning koiches have an overall value such that the nefesh itself can relate to it. And this is how this oineg occurs.
So the nefesh relates to the nefesh which is in the koiches, the nefesh value which is in the koiches.
Yes. The question is, that's correct. The question is, how does the nefesh value come to the koiches? It should be yet. This is reminiscent of a common difficulty. You sit down and learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Now, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is a very strict type of exposition that simply states do's and don'ts without any intellectual enrichment. Even the Rambam, there's a whole cover, a total picture. Still, there were a lot of times in the Rambam that he doesn't bring down any sources, any reasons. But if you learn Kitzur Shulchan, he's just saying do's and don'ts. And who is doing this? This intelligent individual person whose seichel is based on intelligence. And intelligence is based on a perception of some kind of an overall value, of overall truth. How does he focus? How does he condense his wisdom and his intelligence into the very narrow statement of do's and don'ts? Now, if a person has a practical question, that's usually when you're learning Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. When you're on the run and you need a quick answer, what do I do under these circumstances? You pick up Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So then you can say, listen, he has a practical dilemma. But if a person learns Kitzur Shulchan Aruch just reviewing halachas, learn Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, how does he focus in and not become stiff, bored from just learning do's and don'ts without any intellectual insight?
Well, if your intellect is limited, so that's all you can handle.
And the answer is that each halacha represents a godly will.
Godly will.
If he perceives his halachas as being instructions from the writer of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, then he won't be able to read. But because that he relates to this Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and each halacha relates back to the principle, the overall principle, like the Rambam says, there's a motzi rishon mamtzi kol nimtza, and this is where it's coming from. Each halacha, in its limited fashion, is a living statement. And this is how he's able to learn. Just like the nefesh, like we say, in the nefesh, you can move this object from here to here, and the nefesh gets involved in this. Where does that come to the nefesh? Because there's an overall view that every action has a significance. So similarly, in this example of the learning Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, on the contrary, the Gemara says, and it's done, I've seen this many times, the Rebbe reads it down, quotes it very often, that Dvar Havaya Zu Haloch. The whole Torah is Dvar Havaya, but where is there the clear, the pure power of Dvar Havaya? It's in Haloch. Because only Havaya can make a statement, do and don't. Any other source would have to explain, do because of this, don't because of this. Do and don't comes directly only from the Rabbi. So, from that perspective, it's proof I can't. This is where he has the greatest nefesh experience. All right. There's one question that was asked yesterday. I should explain a little bit more. What is the meaning of Giluim Atzmi Shemenefesh? Actually, we had a very clear expose of this on Thursday evening. How Chochmah is a direct connect to the reality of the nefesh. And the principle of Giluyim Atzmiyim, not Giluyim, Giluyim Atzmiyim. Other place it says Oiris Atzmiyim.
Is that synonym for Oiris Atzmiyim?
Right, it's the same thing. What is it between Giluyim Atzmiyim? The principle of Chochmah we discuss all the time. Why is Chochmah so special? And that is because Chochmah does not request that I personally understand what you're telling me. I want to personally review and personally experience, test it on myself, and then I can accept what I'm learning. This is the way it is in other koiches. Chochmah relates to it because it relates to the fundamental truth, and it does not need a personal substantiation of what it's learning. This is the special quality of Chochmah. So you can take the truth in its pure state. I was thinking, it happens every time you get involved in this, something more to say. That the medrash, the Moshe we always use for the medrash, we learned on Chassidus, that Moshe lemelech nichlas l'medina. Moshe for a melech who enters at the Medina, and he comes along with the whole entourage of ministers, and all the people come out to meet him, and they all begin to debate what is this about. Have a little bit of a different approach to this whole debate over there. They come out to meet the king, and the king comes with an entourage of experts, of ministers. And the people come to greet the king. They are debating. Each one says, we need this whole setup, the king, because we need the minister of commerce in order to regulate commerce. So we need this whole thing. Therefore, we need to bring them all in. This one says, no, but we need to regulate our agriculture. This one says we need to regulate our interhuman relations. Whatever it is, everyone has another take on the necessity of bringing this government structure into our midst. Then there is a pikach echod, and he speaks up and says, what are you talking about? We need a king. We need a real statement that this is a real nation. Everything else is a derivative of that. You are coming from the perspective that we are at each other's throats. We have to control our behavior. We have to come from a positive perspective. We need these rules because we are a real nation, because we have a king. And then all these laws will come as a derivative of that reality, not of the negativity and the weakness that we have amongst us. That we can't stand each other's guts. No, when we have a wholesome reality. That's why we need it. And that's why we need a king. Period. This is the principle. So what is this king? We discuss all the time. The king does not get involved in any nitty-gritty, in any factual need, a need that coming from a negative perspective. How much a need that without which we're on each other's throat, like I said before. All of these things in commerce and the agriculture and all of these things are necessities, but it depends where you're coming from. If you come from not having, from a necessity, otherwise we're falling apart. The king does not get involved in that at all. He doesn't know there's thing as not having. This is not what the king's function is. To get involved and regulate the various intranational, international activities. But the king brings out a fundamental reality, an etzim, an atzmius quality to this nation. If it's a true nation, then yes, practically speaking, you need regulations. But the regulations are the derivative of the truth of the nation, not of the weakness of the people. This is called atzmius. And the only faculty that senses this fundamental truth, in other words, a reality without any other kind of cause, any kind of need, is Chochmah. And this is why Chochmah, because like we said before, the nefesh itself does not know such thing as not having, or as not being here and not being there. Doesn't know this whole thing. Therefore, in order to capture the nefesh element, you have to have a koyach that can relate to a truth without initial trigger, without initial necessity, without a negative element. And this is the Chochmah.
This is Chochmah, but the Oyers Atzmiyim themselves, all these qualities, but only from a positive perspective. Is that the point of your explanation here?
Right. The Oyers Atzmiyim, yes. But then only the positive is all coming from the fundamental positivity, fundamental reality of the nefesh. But yes, like we said, once there's a king, then of course, then you have all kinds of regulations, but these regulations come from a positive perspective. Okay, let's continue by that. So we're just below the middle of page Lamed. The line begins Atzmin Shemaneh. So this, as I said, this was a review and bringing them back a refreshing view of the Moshe from the Nefesh, in order to understand the way the Yonim are Lamaylo. That Moi Kein Yuval. That likewise we will be able to understand the big day Sheyam Shochas Atainuk the Atzmus Oirin Soy Boruhu. That in order that there should be the Tainug drawn from Atmos Oirin Soipon. Again, to emphasize these words, the Atzem Oirin Soiv, where the functionality and the contribution of the individual functions are totally insignificant and unnoticed. Again, to give us a little bit of a kind of a handle. When you were standing on the ground and you see a block away, so you're seeing a block away is, okay, I'm standing here, but if I make a few steps, I can get over there. So the presence of the location a block away is what makes you able to notice the block away location. It is because there's a given number of steps that will bring you over there. It's accessible. But I'd say if you were looking at it from a high place, like the others I mentioned, the Empire State Building, you're looking down. There, your perspective, you're seeing these two places is simultaneous. Then you don't see these two places because from this place you can get to this place. There is no activity involved. They're both seen from the same point of reality. And therefore the distance, the activity that brings from one to the other is non-existent. This is like the whole phenomenon of the various contributions of the various spheres is non-existent. Chochmah, in order to bring the Oirin Soif, the Prote HaMadrigas Atzilus, in the specific Madrigas of Atzilus, Zehu Alidei Bechinas Chochmah Yilo the Atzilus. This is Alidei, via the effect and the presence of Bechinas Chochmah Yilo. Again, we already discussed on Friday, as I recall, the use of the word Bechinas Chochmah Yilo, the Atzilus. The Oirin Soif Shoire Bechochmah, because Oirin Soif Shoire rests in Chochmah. Oirin Soif finds a place of rest in Chochmah.
Is the term Chochmah Yilo simply that's the description of Chochmah in Atzilus?
Yes. Yes, but the use of the word Chochmah Yilo specifically, instead of using Chochmah Atzilus, for example, is because Atzilus in general, the whole Madrega of Atzilus is to understand Atzilus, we always use the moshel of Chochmah. The whole world of Atzilus is at the level of Chochmah. This is why we say Atzilus, that's an Eitzel. Atzilus is a gili, a revelation of what's concealed earlier in Kesser. It's not a novel presence, it's not a creation like Koram Habriya. And therefore Atzilus as such, it's in the whole Atzilus qualifies as being Chochmah. Then we say within that there is the union of Chochmah. Therefore that element of Chochmah has a new title. It's called Chochmah Yilo, a Chochmah in a supreme state. Within Chochmah itself, this is Chochmah. And Oirin Soif Shoire Bechochmah. Ukinoida.
Two questions about it. You explained that the significance is Chochmah Yilo that it cannot be mixed with any other things because it's just it exclusively functions on the principle of Chochmah. Now it's an Atzilus where if all Atzilus, as you just said, is Chochmah, you have to specify that. But is it true that at every state where Chokhmah is found, meaning below Atzilus, for instance, there is also a Chokhmah in a state where it's exclusively Chokhmah?
When what?
Exclusively Chokhmah, meaning it's bitul, it's bottle, and cannot be mixed with any koyah. And that state. Is that true at any level, meaning where you do not need to specify that it's Chokhmah law, because it's not a Chokhmah. The Olam Abriya is not a Chokhmah. And there is a Chokhmah in Olam Abriya, which has an aspect where it functions exclusively as Chokhmah, meaning it's bottled to what's beyond it, and it does not relate to what's below it.
Right.
And then you need what you explained, the principle from Bechinas from Chokhmah, which goes into every koyach and into every functional aspect in order to connect it to the true reality, right? Which that's what Chokhmah.
I'm not getting the point you're trying to bring out. Yes, there is Chokhmah in Bria. There's Chokhmah in the Nefesh order, but it's not the same level of Chokhmah as it is in Atzilus.
I'm only asking because you were talking Friday about that unique thing about this Chokhmah law is that it's exclusively Chokhmah, meaning it's what's Chokhmah is bitul to what's above it. So you ask the question, how do you take a piece from that and put it into Bina? How do you take a piece from that and put it into Chesed? That's what you were saying. So that's al yidei bechina that you said from Chokhmah.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. How do you take a piece of that? Not before. Yeah. Go ahead. Because there is nothing to take.
Right. Exactly. So now that we're explaining here, we're exclusively speaking about Atzilus, but apparently, I just to verify, but it's true at every level, that there is, at every level where Chokhmah
at every level it is in a relative sense. Relative to other koiches, the Chokhmah Nefesh is also a big.
Right.
But it's not comparable. Yes.
How does each particular koyach in its own right get the insight from Chokhmah? What is the active part? Is a component of Chokhmah in each koyach that relates to overall Chokhmah, or it's a Chokhmah function to piecemeal, to feed itself, so to say, to the koyches. Who is a mashpia and who is a mekabel? Who is a... You understand the question? Who is responsible for the transmission of that insight of the Chokhmah into each particular faculty?
Right, you know what? I'll bear in mind when I have an opportunity to ask this.
Okay. I mean, can I respond? I should wait. I would say since Chacham is bittul, it also has the etzem quality of nosei hafachim, mashing. In other words, the koyches on one hand on Teifus Mokum, on the other hand, it's able to express itself via the koyches. So that's the.
In order to explain what he asked, we have to address why in Atzilus we call it Chokhmah law, and why we say Bechinas Chokhmah. And we don't say Bechinas Chokhmah, we talk about Nefesh.
Because Chokhmah still maintains that quality. More than. Okay. All right.
You can always have an answer tit for tat, but you have to have a.
Good. I'll wait. Be patient.
Then I have a change. Go into the whole thing, not very. Ukenoida the Bechinas Oirein Soif. And as it's known that the Bechin of Oirein Soif Shein Begeder Be'erach Ubegeder Yislapshus Bekel Oirein Soif is not in that realm, doesn't have at all any of the possibility that it should be mislabish in a cake. Okay, we'll discuss it in a moment. Harei hu mislabish b'chochma b'bchinas pnimiyus, and yet this Oirein Soif is mislabish in chochma b'bchinas pnimiyus in a pnimiyus manner. Mishakosu mizem b'nikudet teir davayikach choyrach. Now clearly over here, Rebbe is presenting to us a functional process in Atzilus. And as we said before, that Atzilus overall is Chochmah. All the spheres of Atzilus are at the level of Chochmah. Which is why Atzilus is called Gilui HaHelem. Gilui HaHelem means that there is nothing novel, there is no Metzius, a new Metzius at all. It is only revealing that which is there from before, in the Etzem, in the Etzem HaKesed. Now, to be able to reveal that which is in Etzem HaKesed, you have to be a Keli for that. This is the Chochmah. Chochmah is able to accept the way the Inyan is in Kesed, L'mayla. No, I have a little impurity here. See if I can fish it out. Okay. No. So even though we're talking about Atzilus, but this was AyinBase about. Whatever we learn, we have to try to get into it. Right? First, we'll try to speak a bit from bottom up, from the end backwards. The Thamas b'chochma b'bchinas pnimius. What is b'bchinas pnimius mean? Like we spoke on Friday. We go to work in order to do our job, in order to get paid. He is getting paid. There are two phenomena. There's the overall principle in this, what we call to have money. There's another function in this, is to earn money. We discussed this a little bit. There's a fundamental difference between having money and earning money. Having money is not a pnimius element, and I'll explain in a moment. To earn money is a pnimius element. What does pnimius mean? Pnimius means something that is has a real presence, a real presence in the world. Now, if you have money, think about this. In our world, how do you have money? What do you mean you have money? The money and you are two separate entities. In what way do you have money? You have jurisdiction, whatever, however it happens. It's safeguarded for you because there are national laws and it's sitting up there in the bank, whatever it is. That's what you have. In this world, there's no such thing as you have. In this world, everything is precarious. If I'm holding the watch in my hand, so I'm holding it in my hand. The minute I put it down, I don't have it. In a pnimi sense, I own it, nobody's going to touch it. But in a pnimi sense in the world, I have it only when I hold it in my hand. From a worldly perspective.
Worldly perspective, that's a Kitzoni perspective. Pnimi is you always own it, it's your watch. Kitzoni, you only have it.
Pnimi as part of the world.
I don't know what that means.
You know what I mean? It means the following. If you think of the world the way the world thinks of it, not the way we think of the world that's a godly creation.
Oh, so there, the inner way to own something is to hold it in your hand.
Hold it in your hand. The minute you put it down, you don't have it. This whole Ayin, that Elokus that creates the world, is mislabish in the world b'chinas pnimius. At the point we say, no, it is yours, even if you put it down. This is a phenomenal thing. Elokus is much higher than this whole thing. And mislabish in the world in a pnimistic way. It is yours, even if you don't hold it. You understand? Doesn't mean mislabish in finished. But world per se does not have that quality at all. World, that which is currently factual is a fact. That which is currently not factual is not a fact. So this is what we say. That Ayin Soif, now we understand this whole line. Ayin Soif is mislabish b'chochma b'bchinas pnimius. Chochma has that quality, that ability in pnimius. In other words, it is meaningful from Ayin Soif perspective that there is chochma. Even though Ayin Soif in itself is l'mayla migeder, in the B'yarach Geder Mislabish B'Kli. It's not that Geder being Mislabish and Keli. It's Mislabish and Keli. Like a Keli, the Pshat, you own this, for instance. Ayin Soif will not be Geder Mislabish B'Kli. Like we said again, let's go back to our discussion of having money, owing money, owning money, and making money, earning. Earning is a pneumishin. In the world, earning is a pneumishin. The only way for you to get anything is to go and get it. That's earning. having is something which is kind of a higher level than world. Because this world doesn't have any fundamental presence. What you make, that's what there is. What's a table? A table is something that was put together from pieces of wood. And it remains that way. It's been put together. It doesn't become truly a unit. It's held together by these screws that hold it together. It's always an active state. It's being held together. That's the way things are in the world. And on that level, this is pneumius. It's actually happening in the world. Oirein soif. Again, going back to our Muslim, a table. You know, the concept of a table, the way it's perceived in the person, it doesn't at all relate to the screws holding the boards together. And therefore, he cannot relate to the actualization of a table in a pneumistic way.
Pneumistic for the world.
Pneumis in the world doesn't mean pneumis. Pneumis means active, factual. Chochmah is this very, very unique element. Why is Chochmah a unique element, as we discussed lately a lot? The uniqueness of Chochmah, you say, is a klal, it's a koyach kloli. It includes everything. And we pointed out, how can anything include everything? How is everything? Everything, you have to get every little thing, you have to get it separately. It includes everything. It includes everything means, on the other hand, before I go there, everything, there are a whole bunch of things in it. You can't even count them. And they're all included. How did they get in there? So he explained that the shot that includes everything is due to the fact that it recognizes the etzem, the truth of the etzem, and it is bottom to that. And even though it's a mitzias of Chochmah, but it recognizes, from being a mitzias, it recognizes that the real truth is the way the truth is higher than a mitzias. And this is how Chochmah includes everything. Let's go back, I think, into an easier one, but this is very conceptual. I think it's clear if we are able to focus in. But I think it would be easier for us to think of the king. But all the various people, everyone says a different reason why we need a government. Let's see it from that perspective. We need urban planning. We can't just start building houses wherever. It has to be planned. It has to be a government. And on every turn, you need something. And everyone speaks from a different vantage point. Then comes the Chochmah and he says, what we need actually is a king. What is a king? A king is like this. A king, from our perspective, he'll provide for everything. But how will he provide for everything? He'll provide for everything by making one big statement. And the big statement is that this is a country, and that is for real. That has a real presence, higher than everything. And from this point of reality, everything is real. So that it is absolutely correct to say that you need urban planning. Why? Because it's a king. Because it's a country. You need controlling of how you're going to build your houses and be safe, because it's a country. You need to know how you're going to control your canalization, your water flow, because it's a country. It includes everything, but where is it? How is it included? Because it relates to that which is higher than everything, to reality where there is no everything, where there is the pure truth. We just now had the discussion over here about Pnimi and all that, and I said, if you think of the world the way the world thinks of itself. How does the world think of itself? It developed itself. There is no creator of oneself. If there's no creator, there is no truth. There's no reality. Everything makes itself. Everything has, so to speak, its own presence. So therefore, if you are supposed to own this watch, you're supposed to hold it in your hand, then you own it. There's no other reality in the world that says that this is yours except when you hold it. This is how it would be from the moral perspective if we do not recognize and include the fact that it was created. But when we say, no, it was created, and again, it was created does not mean it was created and then let to flow on its own. It was created and the creator remains representative. The fact that it was created is representative. The creator remains attached to it. So then the whole world changes its whole perspective. There's a fundamental reality to it. And from this fundamental reality comes everything that the world needs. Who makes that transition? That's the Chochem. The Chochem recognizes the truth of the Creator, and it translates it. But Chochem is a Metzias, and therefore there's everything. Cloud. He brings it down into a worldly arena. So the word everything is extremely significant. And it's made a very clear emphasis. Everything, not all, but everything. Every detail that can ever be imagined is provided for by this Chochem. I think we are pretty close to addressing your question. Okay, so let's go back to this line, and then we'll have to interrupt because we have a bris. Going back, Ukenoide, as is known, the Bechinas Oir Ein Sof Sheina Be'erach L'Yeder Yislafshul B'Kli. The Oir Ein Sof, the Bechinas Ein Sof, which is not Be'erach at all, it is not in the realm of being Yislabish in a cave. There is no everything there. There is not just the godly truth and godly reality. So Ayin Sof. Harei hu mislabish b'chochma. Then this Ayin Sof is mislabish b'chochma. And this is slapshus in chochma. This is the important point. This slapshus b'chochma is not merely that chochma allows it to flow through it. No, b'bchinas pnimiyus. In chochma, it becomes pnimis. But chochma identifies from the Ayin Sof all things, everything. Chochma identifies from the Ayin Sof the human being, lahavdil, every species of animal, and every variety in the world, and every change of season, everything. It's all identified by Chochma from the Ayin Sof. As I pointed out many times, that this Chochma phenomenon, this is what allows us to acclimate to all kinds of changes that are happening all the time. Especially nowadays, you can recognize the world from one year to another. In 10 years, it's a completely different world. I mean, you can all acclimate to it. Can you imagine? This is a telephone. This is not a telephone. This is a whole computer. This is a whole world in here. And we can relate to it. Why? Because without Chochma, knowing Chochma knows the Etzem HaNefesh, knows the Etzem truth, and everything is possible. Everything is in it.
Is that to say it's not just acclimating, in a way it is what is creating those changes? It's not just acclimating to the changes, but it's kind of governing
it.
What's at peace.
We're acclimating to it on a practical level, which is a tremendous change. The reason we're acclimating is because we go back to our Chochma and say, yeah, I can accept it. It makes sense. At some point in time, it goes back to the essence of what life is. It's okay. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, I was imagining this thing to happen. I read science fiction, and I was waiting until it materialized. It made sense to me. Right? Why? Because that's how I view the world. I view my life. Whatever I want, it's there. And the big thing is that Ayin Sof is mislabish b'chochma b'chinas pnimiyus. So I'm emphasizing this word, and hopefully you'll get the point. B'chinas pnimiyus means it actually relates to it. Not that it's there and to kind of overwhelm it. It relates to it. And this will be it for this morning. And Ayin Gannon is having us this morning. Thank you, Zont. After one. Call to have a good day.
It's 10:45, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it?
We were wondering
Down at 770 left.
if you'd be interested in sports.